just before I welcome in Jono, breaking story from The Age reports that Gold Coast are a step closer to confirming Damien Hardwick as their next coach. The CEO, Mark Evans, is planning to jump on a plane to talk to Hardwick on his European vacation. So a club source, according to The Age, said that the club reached out to Hardwick via phone last week to inquire if the three-time premiership coach was interested in continuing his career. Clearly, the answer was yes. I want to get this man's thoughts on that now. Jono, welcome in. I guess none of us are surprised by this news.
Good evening, Kane. Gerard, no, exactly right. It's just been a matter of when and the timing around it, I suppose, is what the Gold Coast have tried to get right. And it was a big weekend for them last weekend. So, keep that positive news sort of coming along, I suppose.
They've done pretty well under Stephen King, Jono.
I've liked what they've produced under Stephen King. And
particularly for Landers, Laird, not Laird.
No, Flanders' numbers are
extraordinary.
Very, very good.
So
yeah.
What I want to know, I'm just not going to quite get my head around this just yet. So Hardwick leaves 9 games into the season. He's burnt out. He gets a payout from the club, presumably for the rest of the year. He goes away. He comes back. He attends some footy and does some stuff. Then he goes away again. Stewie Jew, his good mate, his premiership teammate, gets the sack whilst he is away. I'm just sceptical that someone who is burnt out after round 9 is ready to go again a couple of weeks later, according to him, on the Dylan Friends podcast, and now ready to take over from Stewie Jew. Is he the right man for Gold Coast? I know what his resume says. I know what a great coach and football person he has been. But coaching is a job where you need energy. You need to be all in. You don't want to come back in January. You don't want to be having time off. You don't want to be burnt out. This club needs to play finals. It needs to play finals next year. And as I've said a couple of times this year, if I was a Richmond fan, I'd be absolutely filthy. He's traded all their draft picks. He's bolstered the midfield. He's contracted until the end of 2024. He lasts 9 games citing burnout. And now he's going to coach a rival a couple of weeks later. It's a bizarre story to me, and I love Damien Hardwick, and I love what he's done, but I'm just sceptical. I'm sceptical of the whole thing. Is that fair or not?
It's fair. The way you've summed it up, Kane, is absolutely fair. But there's always reasoning behind decisions that are made, and the reasoning behind this was obviously an offer to go and coach at the Gold Coast Suns, and now we wait to see the response from Damien Hardwick. And
what do you think it might be, Jono?
Well, I think it'll be that I've had time away, and I'm feeling good about myself now, and away I go. I actually don't mind. I don't mind the decision to leave Richmond the way that he did, not putting Gold Coast to one side, because I actually am quite big now on the fact that after what's happened with Chris Fagan, or with more, I suppose, specifically with Alistair Clarkson and Hawthorn, and not being able to go back to celebrate those flags with everybody. And Damien Hardwick now, with how successful he was as a coach, I think has opened up the eyesight of every other coach that is in a similar position that is successful at a club of how your exit actually happens. So there's that's to one side, because he goes back now and celebrates every flag with them over the period of time, and is embraced by the entire club. But then it comes down to the explanation that, okay, I'm burnt out. Well, how long are you burnt out for?
Well, it was 2 weeks. That's was what he said on the Dylan. So look,
sometimes you just need a change too, Kane. And sometimes the way it's articulated is not spot on, and we understand that.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just not going to be as accepting as I think most people are going to be. So okay, Gold Coast, he's available. Go and get the best coach that's available and tick it off. I'm just looking into it perhaps a little bit more deeply, and the skeptic in me seems to think, well, maybe I've taken this Richmond list as far as it can go. I can see the writing on the wall somewhat. I can see that it's going to be tough to have success for the next 5 or so years and why not, with my resume, walk away, get a significant payout for the rest of the year, and then I'm going to be pretty desirable for another club. So if you're Chris Scott and next year things don't go the way that you're thinking at Geelong, what's to say he can't just walk away at round 10 and cite burnout, because it's going to be tough for Geelong to stay up the top, get a payout, go on a European holiday and wait for the next club to sack their coach, And then they'll come along and offer Chris Scott $1 million for 5 years and he can move on to the next club. Now, there's only a certain number of coaches that can do that with a resume. There's probably, I don't know, Longmire's probably in the category. Chris Scott would be in the category. Hardwick and Clarkson was. There's not many, but if you're in that category, that's the option that you have. And it would petrify me if I was Geelong that could happen at their club on the back of what Hardwick has done. But Tigers fans...
Why would it petrify you given Richmond have actually done pretty well?
Well, that's the bounce you get though, Gerard, from an interim. That happens all the time. I mean, you can't compare McWalter to Hardwick. You've got a 3-time premiership coach stitched up on another 18 months, and you've replaced him with McWalter, which we've got no idea whether
No, I understand
he's going to be any
but
good.
I mean,
You'd
maybe
rather-
the new
would you
voice
rather
is what was
Hardwick-
required.
Maybe, but
Yeah,
if Chris Scott's the best one in the league, if I was petrified at Geelong, Chris Scott versus I don't know, pluck a name, a Troy Chaplin, I think I'll take Chris Scott.
No, I think every decision is an individual one, but may be that the Tigers players, they just needed a new voice, and Damien picked up on that, and he decided that for the reasons Jono cited, it was best to move on.
Yeah, sometimes you in your mind, whenever you step down as something, like you step down as a captain or a leader in an environment, you want to step down knowing the place is in a better position than when you started that particular role yourself as an individual. So Damien Hardwick can tick that box 100%, and maybe that was part of his mindset as well, because he got the club to a certain position, drafted in the players that he probably thought can take them to the next premiership again over the coming years, and probably goes, okay, now the time is right for me because of the club is a lot better from when I started to where we are now, and we've had to work through a lot to get to this point. I'm going to set this place up for the next coach to be successful quicker than what it took Damien Hardwick to be successful at Richmond.
All right, we are happy to take a call or two from you on that. In fact, let's go to Dale, who wants to have his say. Welcome to you, Dale.
Yeah, g'day, Kane. Just Hardwick and Richmond. When Hardwick said he was burnt out, I think it was with Richmond, not himself. He said he'd gone as far as he could with the group to cook the sausages. So
there's only so many thousand ways you can cook the sausages, or whatever he said. Yeah. So then I go, why do you sign on for another 2 years? Like, surely he would have had an inkling that was the case. Like, why?
Sometimes you question yourself, Kane, at times, and sometimes you probably back yourself in and then go, you know what? Yeah, I've made this call, but it's not the right one. And we've done that. We've seen players do that. We've probably been through similar situations individually ourselves over time. That has been where you're still backing yourself in, but mentally you probably start to question yourself at different stages as well. So it's probably just that's just the personal nature of being involved in such a competitive sport that we are.
Lenny says, is everyone delusional? Hardwick was always going to the Gold Coast, left Richmond for a breather before taking up the role. Your thoughts, Jono?
Stewie was still there, wasn't he? And they were going okay when Damien Hardwick stepped down. So, I mean, it's a big call to say that he was always going to the Gold Coast, because when he stepped away in round 9, I don't know, if I get my chart out and look at where Gold Coast were, they weren't going horribly. They'd just won 3 out of their last 4 leading into round 9. Do you think he was always going there, even before Stewie Dew was sacked, Jono?
Oh, it's hard. Honestly, it is hard to say. But you'd think the leadership at Gold Coast, and I'm talking the board, would have been having discussions around at that particular time. And I think we had a discussion about that at the time, saying you have to have these board level discussions around what is best for us in the next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. And normally they've got about a 5-year plan, each board. So you need to be constantly assessing that at the top level. And then if they've made a decision as a board that, okay, maybe Stewie Dew isn't the one to take us to finals, then we've got to start thinking about that. And that might have been the discussion that was had at senior level that then obviously filtered down over the weeks post that.
Jono, let me just bring forward a couple of yes/no Jono questions for you, given that they do pertain to this very topic. Let's just take it as written. Hardwick will be the coach of the Gold Coast Suns, and the deal will be signed up, and it'll all be honky-dory, and he'll lob back in October and get to work. Jono, yes or no? The Suns will play finals next year with a good injury run.
No.
The Suns will win a flag within 5 years.
No.
4 years.
No.
3 years.
No.
6 years.
Yeah.
We're going the other way.
6 to 10.
Geez, I think you're being harsh. I reckon the Suns with 3 and
So do you
possibly
think-
4
okay.
draftees, high-enders.
Yes.
I think
I'm not
they're now
talking
with
about the
Hardwick on
draftees.
board and a couple of Hardwick's lieutenants will probably go with him.
Could. They could. But this is the thing. He's going to have to adjust the style to suit Gold Coast because his style at Richmond is not necessarily going to work at the Gold Coast Suns. We've seen that in the past
You
with
watch it
coaches
adapt.
that have flinked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
They'll recruit for that
The only
style.
way that can change
Yep.
for me is if with Damien Hardwick's presence now as senior coach, potentially senior coach of Gold Coast Suns, what senior type recruit he can get to that football club.
So-
That's the key that can make the difference quicker. Otherwise, if they go through the draft process, it's 5 years of getting to a position of finals, winning a final, all those things that you probably need to tick, and then it's post that they could probably win one.
Given the talent that's coming in, and let's call it the best forward in the competition, second best, third best player maybe, the best ruckman we've seen coming out of the under-18s for a hell of a long time, a really smart small forward, and there's one other midfielder. You add that to their group they've got, and they've got a hell of a lot of good 22 and unders, including here's Humphrey, who's an absolute
He
beauty.
is a very good player, or will be.
Anderson's on fire. Rowe's starting to work
Yeah.
it out.
Yep.
They've got an intercepting defender down there, Mac Andrew. They probably need another ruckman to back it up. But if they can't
good
win a
case you're
flag
making.
in 5 years, you'd question whether they're going to win a flag.
they've-
Well, some haven't. And,
No, I agree with that.
you know,
I understand, but I think with Hardwick there, all the ingredients are there. You'd be entitled to say, look what we're
Now,
cooking.
and the other thing they have to look after then is their salary cap, because what Damien Hardwick can't have
Yep.
is a squeeze where he's losing
Yep.
the top end players you're talking
Yep.
about because of the fact that they're
And that was
paying others to
said
stay.
to be a reason why they removed Stewie Dew, so that when Anderson is a free agent, when Rao is a free agent, when Lukosius, when King are free agents, I think King comes out of contract at the end of next year, there is signs that there's success, so they do stay. That was one of the reasons cited by Caroline Wilson as why they removed Stewie Dew. Jono, if I got another yes or no for you in a roundabout way, if Hardwick, when he goes, Cochin, Revolt, and Martin, will any of those three join him?
Yeah, big possibility. Big possibility.
Is there a possibility all three join him?
Yeah, of course there's a possibility. What are their sit currents? I
Well,
know Rewalt and Cochin are
They're out.
they're
Martin's
out.
got one more, I reckon.
One more. So it wouldn't surprise me if two of them decided that, the Gold Coast is a spot for me. That wouldn't surprise me. But ultimately, I think that Rewalt and Cochin deep down will finish Richmond
Yep.
players. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
100%.
A lot of text coming through. Kane, you clearly don't like Hardwick, so just tell us you don't. You've been having a go at Richmond all year about a range of issues that were
I like
mainly
your
Hardwick's
premiership team, mate.
decision. So be honest. I honestly, I love him. In terms of a teammate, I thought he was. In terms of the leadership of that football club, no one was more influential in us winning the premiership. So it's not that, but I just think I'm just sceptical about this decision. I really am, and I do think it's a poor look. And I'm asking the Richmond fans if they feel the same. You've got a three-timer who walks away 9 games in, citing fatigue or burnout or whichever way you want to phrase it. And then a few weeks later, he's ready to go again. And then he's coaching another club next year when he was still contracted to your club after trading away all your draft picks. I just think if I was a Richmond fan, I'd be furious. But you don't seem to be, and that's okay. Maybe you
Would
just...
it be Damien Hardwick making that sole decision, or surely it's a list management decision?
Yeah, no, of course.
In conjunction with the coach.
Of course, it's a list management decision. But these coaches, they want success. They don't want to think about rebuilding. Like, they don't want to think about a pick 12 and a 19 and a future first and a 31 for Hopper and Taranto. That's not going to help them now add to his 3 premierships. He's there now. Clarkson did the same at Hawthorn. Like, they traded every pick. They hardly had a first-round pick after they had that dynasty. So I would think that he was reasonably influential in that decision. Taron Thomas will be at Gold Coast in 2024, says Dom. Boys, haven't you guys thought that Damien's departure from Richmond was Richmond's way of releasing him with respect as opposed to a sacking, says Big Mick. And Dimma to the Suns has blight to the Saints written all over it. Lessons to be learnt with Clarkson also this year. Righto, Jono, with done that topic, and if you want to have your say, you can continue to do that. But let's move on to your topic.
Number 2, I have to apologise to you, Gerard, because I didn't give you a chance last week when we were talking about Nick Dacos and being tagged, how to handle a tagger, because you know what? Kingy is right
Spot
in
on.
this situation. And it's tough for me to say that Kingy is right in this situation. But you're a Brownlow medalist, you're an MVP, you're a 3-time All-Australian, you're a 3-time Bob Skilton medalist, you've done it all, Sydney Swans Team of the Century, Hall of Famer. And I didn't ask you,
That's
Gerard.
okay,
and
Jono. That's all right. I defer to your legendary status. And I know you wanted to get that out because Kingy said that you've been fantastic on the program. And I agree, you've been fantastic. But that's okay. I was more than happy to defer to your experiences and certainly from Kane's experiences. So I'm just sitting here.
You are too modest as
I'm just
always.
sitting here throwing to the ad breaks. It's fine. I do the odd editorial.
No, apologies from us all.
No apologies
that was an
required.
Kane,
oversight.
And that's a whack back on us, Kane, because as Gerard just said then, all I'm here for is to throw to the ad breaks.
That is not true. All right.
So I've got another yes, no. I'm going to throw this out to you because it pertains to that topic. Yes or no? Do you think tagging will play a significant part in this finals campaign for the first time in a decade? Yes or no?
Yes.
I think it's back, Kane.
Yeah.
I really think it is back.
Well,
And I didn't ask that question of Mason Wood lightly because I look at Carlton and I think to myself, there's no Walsh, there's no Chera. You take Cripps, you just sacrifice someone. Jack Steele goes on to Cripps, say, you're not touching the ball. I'm prepared to go 0-0 for you because I'm prepared to back our others in.
I love it. So
I agree.
if you look at the way the final series is shaping up, and we had Melksham on last night, you asked him the same question about Dacos. It'll be Collingwood playing Melbourne. Now, a lot's going to change, but as it sits now, so I don't know who Melbourne will put to Dacos, but I'm assuming it would be a Harms type or
Definitely
a
Harms.
Viney, whoever is. It
Maybe
might not just
Viney.
be a
Brayshaw.
it might
Viney's
not-
going
yeah.
as well as anyone, though, so
Brayshaw's the
I'd be
one.
going Harms.
And if
Ooh,
Port
I'd be
Adelaide
going
play
Brayshaw.
Brisbane, I'm telling you with certainty that Willem Drew goes to Lockie Neal. I'm telling you on the back of Ashcroft being out and what Miller did to Neal. So that will happen and still should go to Cripps this weekend because he did a great job on him earlier on in the year. And Cripps had shown through Heaney and Dawson that he is vulnerable in that space. So
It's what Callum Ward did to Bont last weekend as well.
Did a great job.
13 in the
After
first
quarter
quarter.
time,
After
yeah.
quarter time, I agree with that. They let him off the leash and then had to reel him back in, which can be tough to do, but they did it.
all right, Jono, the pressure index, teams playing for their lives this weekend.
Oh, there's plenty of them. This is so good, Gerard and Kane. The way that this is built up, and it's great to talk about as well because of the pressure that is on so many teams to get it right this week to give themselves at least a gap potentially to play finals footy. And I revert to the Dogs v Richmond, the first game on Friday night. So if the Dogs win, they sit on 40 points at the moment. Richmond are on 38. If the Dogs win, they get a 6-point gap on the Tigers.
Yep.
So that's one team that they potentially won't have to worry about in round 24, which could be the big round of the year, which could determine who plays finals or not. Because then the Dogs go Hawthorn in Tassie, which will be tough. Then they play the West Coast Eagles, they win that. So by round 24, they keep the 6-point buffer on the Tigers. For the Tigers, it's the opposite. They need to win this one, jump the Dogs, and then it becomes a battle to the final round. Essendon beat West Coast. Essendon are an interesting one who win their next two.
You've ridden the Bombers
No way.
bandwagon
All
the
the
way,
years. We
Jono.
might as well talk about them right now because their next two is West Coast and North Melbourne.
Yeah.
Then they play the Giants for their spot in the
And maybe the Giant spot.
and maybe the Giants spot as well. So Essendon fans, and they'll build some percentage hopefully in this period of time. Also, Adelaide and Gold Coast is obviously interesting. And Kane, Adelaide coming off a showdown. Do you give Gold Coast a realistic chance in this one?
Sneaky chance.
Is there always a flat spot off the showdown because of the build-up?
There may be. I mean, they did get themselves up in a big way, and they still have some injury concerns, the Crows, particularly with their defensive stocks, like Butts is out again. So there's a couple of injury concerns for them. And Gold Coast, there's players playing for their football lives, not just the season, but actually, I want a contract type stuff. So, yeah, you'd give them you wouldn't have them as favourites and you wouldn't tip them, but, you know, they're a slight chance that they could get an upset there.
Hawthorn v Collingwood MCG. Pies, you'd think clean that one up. Cats and Port Adelaide.
This will be interesting, though, for the Pies because they will put one of the best taggers in the business,
McGuinness,
Hawthorn,
he's
Paul
coming.
McGuinness.
onto, I suspect, Nick Dacos, which will mean that Nick Dacos, who is probably having his flattest month, and it's not a flat month, but he's been curtailed to a degree. It's going to be interesting to see what McGuinness can do to him.
Yeah, and that's right. And his positioning and what he's learnt in the last few weeks is
And
critical.
there'll be good learnings for the boy.
It could be 20 and 3 goals from Dacos, not 35 and 0.
And we'll also
you know
see
I mean?
what McRae does. He might just stick him in the forward flank and say, all right, well, see how you go here.
Exactly.
He tagged him in the pre-season game. Like, so
Right.
that's how
McGuinness has got one
He had
role.
a good look at him in the pre-season.
So Cats and Port Adelaide, right?
That's
So
interesting.
this is huge for both teams. Obviously, the Cats with the injuries that they've got with Hawkins and Blitz halves in particular,
And the
Port
3
Ad-
losses in a row.
Port Adelaide 3 losses in a row. Kane, if they lose this one, Port Adelaide, do they ring Treaders? Just
Oh, not
do they ring
Treaders.
Treaders to fire them up again?
Shona.
Shredders is occupied at the moment.
is.
He's got a lot on his plate. Let me just say that he's in
So-
court. He's in court at the moment. So
This is big. This is big for Port Adelaide, as we understand. If they can knock over the Cats at GMHBA, they're away again. But 4 in a row with losses starts to just build up underneath a little bit as you're
Can I
trying to
put
run
it
into
in
finals.
these terms, Shona? If they don't beat the Cats, given the injuries of the Cats, then they're not really in the premiership hunt.
Okay.
yeah, I think
We'll talk about the others
I
soon.
think that's a fair call, Gerard. Albeit Aaliyah out is big, but that's cancelled out by Hawkins.